Hola, buenos días. Mi español no es muy bueno, por favor. Perdóname que usar el inglés esta presentación. So, thank you again for the invitation to recall and to the Congress for having us here present to you. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the efficiency gains with RayStation that brings from a clinical perspective. As you heard, I was a medical physicist in the clinic in the Estados Unidos, and I had the opportunity to implement RayStation for multiple clinics. And now with Raysearch, I am helping them bring RayStation to not only the Estados Unidos, but to Latin America, and have had the opportunity to meet some of you and speak to you. So to give you some background on Raysearch as a company, it was founded by Johan Löf in the year 2000. It was a spin-off from the institution of Karolinska in Stockholm, Sweden. The first module for IMRT was delivered in 2001. And Johan Löf, who is the current CEO, his thesis is part of the algorithm in RayStation that is currently used. So to break down the company as a whole, we have close to 400 employees, and out of those 400, half of those, about 200, are in research and development. And the reason for that, for us to be competitive in the market for radiation therapy and treatment planning specifically, we invest a lot of time and energy in the product and research and development. And that's what has allowed us to be the market leader in the treatment planning system area. So what does RayStation bring? We call this the idea of a new paradigm. And the way that we say this is done is that there was an old way that treatment planning was done. And you can see from the graph here, maybe I can show it to you on this here, that the old way was to do this iterative process where you had this complicated process of the physician would come in, he would give you your written directive, and then the planner would come and start planning. The physician would go away, you would plan, and then the physician would come back and you would have a discussion like, oh, can you do this better? Or can you do this? Can you push this parotid a little bit more? And then he would go away, and then you would continue to work, and you would have this iterative process. With MultiCriteria Optimization, which was implemented at the start of RayStation, that paradigm shifted, because now what you can do is in real time talk to your physician and talk to him about exactly all the different possibilities for that specific patient. So he didn't have to leave. He could just sit there with you, figure out the plan that he wanted, and then now you're on to going ahead and processing that plan. So how does RayStation accomplish this? And because we're a software company and we focus on research and development, we can optimize the hardware that we use. So we make full utilization of the GPU. So that's the hardware that you're familiar with, gaming and things like that. So we make full use of that. And we've made all our algorithms and optimizations configured to run on the GPU. So if you can see that we run plan generation protocols, we have deep learning segmentation, adaptation, multi-criteria optimization, scripting, and fallback planning, machine learning, and clinical goals. These are all on the GPU. So you're getting an extremely fast computation time on any particular step you do in the treatment planning process. So what type of results can I obtain in my clinic practice? So when we talk about the tedious steps that go into creating a plan, generating structure sets, creating contours, adding beams, adding optimization functions, constraints, objectives, that those steps can be created into a protocol, and you can press one button to generate all that in once. So what do I say? That saves you minutes out of your day that you may have been doing prior to plan generation protocols. Now, as I mentioned, with GPU calculation and the optimization that's happening on the GPU, that all the calculation, we have collapsed cone as our base standard. We also have Monte Carlo. That's full Monte Carlo, not like other vendors who may take some shortcuts with like other algorithms. We are doing a full class 2 level Monte Carlo calculation. Because of that you are able to create a plan and generate multiple plans in a faster manner. You're saving hours on the time that you would have in your other applications. And then finally, the use of multi-criteria optimization. When we talk about multi-criteria optimization, this is giving you the entire solution space. As I mentioned, the paradigm shift, that the idea there is you don't have to do the iterative planning, right? You create a constraint and then you run a plan and say, okay, that constraint was met. Let me go back and see if I can decrease that constraint, run the plan again. Here with multi-criteria optimization, the entire solution space for that particular case, for that written directive from the physician is shown to you. So when I talked about the new paradigm shift, that is saving you days. So this is what, from a clinical perspective, and this is what I was able to implement in my clinics before it came over to Raysearch, that we have now protocols that save minutes, we have calculations with GPU, save hours, and then our physicians now understand that when they have a plan from the planner, from the physicist, that is the full plan, and they are able to sit down and evaluate that plan and be done and move on with their day and see other patients. So how do we break this down? So as you saw in the initial part of the presentation, RayStation is a comprehensive treatment planning system that we have every modality, every technique available that is in the clinic. So if you're doing 3D plans, we can automate that 3D plan with protocols, calculations with the GPU, and what do we say? That is an estimate of about at least minimum 50% reduction in the time that you would have to generate a 3D plan. Similarly, with an IMRT plan, optimizing and automation of those steps allows you to reduce the time that you have to interact with the physician. Just as IMRT, VMAT, similar thing, we have automation, we have steps that I can show you, and I'll show you here in a little bit. And then the GPU calculations reduce the time that you have to work on that, and then reduce the time of the physician. Now, we also have this module called fallback. So, for instance, if your clinic has multiple linacs or different types of linac, you have a C-arm linac and for instance, like a helical tomo, or you have a cyberknife, or you have two different machines. You have a TrueBeam and a variant, Electa or a variant, that you can then quickly just do a fallback plan, and now you have a new plan in just seconds, and I'll show you that as well. So what is the result of doing all that? You might be like, well, automation may put me out of a job, or it may prevent me from doing other things. It actually, I think the idea is that it can result in a lot of time savings, where now the staff that's in the clinic can shift their focus on patient-based treatment. So clinicians, like the physicians, can focus on the patient themselves, and then the physicist or the planner can now focus on more difficult tasks and spend more time on things that may be challenging. So now I think I would like to show you a live demo of RayStation. I know, like, sometimes it's pretty boring to hear a PowerPoint presentation. So I think, and I made some bold statements, right? I said that we're saving seconds, minutes, and days. So I need to back that up with some real hard evidence. So that's what I'm going to do for you now. So let me get my, so you should be able to see RayStation. So this is the RayStation launcher. Um, one of the things that you have here is I'm showing you the entire module, right? We have planning, which majority of the time that the planner is going to spend, but we also have Ray Machine, and that's our artificial intelligence. So we have deep learning for segmentation, we have deep learning for automatic planning, and we built that from the ground up, right? That we have the process of, in moving forward, to do what you may have heard of as federated learning. So it would be adapting to your clinic and the specifications to your clinic. Ray Physics, I think majority of people here are physicists. Like Ray Physics houses the virtualization of any machine. So we, as I said, we support all treatment modalities, and I'm just going to quickly show you how fast this the applications launch. So you can see that we provide support for every particular machine, not only like your photon machines, but we also have brachytherapy support and protons as well. So you can see that we have, and we're sort of the market leader in that. But here, just you can see we have CyberKnife support, Agility, Infinity, Halcyon, TrueBeam, Versa, anything that you can think of that may be needed in the clinic, we have the ability to do that. And I like this because I would say that a lot of people would say that RayStation is a TPS for physicists because it allows you to do some really neat things. It's nice in that it covers the spectrum. If you wanted to just make it easy and not do a lot of complicated things, we have things that are auto planning, auto modeling, even for the energy. But if you wanted to get nerdy, as I like to say, that you can come in and you can actually get into the energy spectrum. You can get into like the fluence. You can talk about that. So this is really something really amazing that other treatment planning systems don't give you the access that physicists would like to see and maybe tinker with. So it's enough of the nerdy stuff. So let's get into like the planning, which majority of people will spend their time on. So very good question. And I should say, if you have any questions, again, please raise your hand, and I would love to make this interactive. I don't want to make it that I'm speaking at you. So this is just, Carlos, thank you for that question. So what I'm going to be showing you is running currently on my laptop. I do have a GPU card in my laptop, but this is all of the processes that I'm running are running locally. So you can see what the speed would be. So for instance, institutions that have RayStation, they would have a server, multiple GPUs. So the time that I'm showing you here, you can reduce that time because the hardware would be a lot better in a clinic. But what I'm showing you is from the laptop right now. So you have, when you open up RayStation Planning, this is what you see. You see your most recent patient. So if you wanted to jump in, you were working on something and you had to leave, that you can just click on this particular patient and go right to that module. So for instance, we'll work on this. We're going to go to patient modeling. And I think I'm going to start off by showing you, I made some bold statements about seconds. And so let's go into that and I can show you how long certain things take. So with RayStation, you get the ability to import in any DICOM standards. Like if you have an MR scan, PET scan, cone beam CT, you can see I have a cone beam CT here. I have a planning CT sim and an MR scan. So we can evaluate them side by side. You can see that this is like the MR and CT. You can switch them around. What we'll do right now is I'll show you the deep learning segmentation. And I like to, because I made some bold statements, I'm going to put a clock here too, so you can see exactly how long this is going to take. So as I mentioned with deep learning segmentation, we have, and we have an entire department that's dedicated to machine learning. So as I mentioned, half of our company is made up of research and development. Part of that team is the machine learning team, and they're dedicated to working on deep learning segmentation and auto planning. So you can see when I expand this that there's about 38 head and neck tumors that someone would be interested in doing. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to hit start here, and let's bring up my clock. Let's start that. So you can see that right when I clicked on the auto auto segmentation that it generated all that structure set. And that structure set, we're trying to follow the process of TG263. So those are the standards that we give you at the initial onset of the system. And this is based off of hundreds of clinical data that we've used to model these contours for. So this is what something that comes base with RayStation. So you're getting auto segmentation, and this is running deep learning using convolutional neural networks to generate this. So we've had the models that we've created, and now we're able to use that to generate that. So there you go. I didn't lie to you. Like about, let's say my clock started a couple seconds late, so let's say about 50 seconds. So I generally ask clinicians, like, how long does this take? And they tell me that this takes anywhere from an hour to half the day, where now you're getting this in about 50 seconds. And you can see this, visualize this in 3D. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and evaluate this so that I can show you exactly what this looks like. And RayStation has nice keyboard shortcuts that I can zoom in and zoom out. So I'm happy to slow down and show you what these look like. So you can see you have parotid, you have base of tongue, even with artifact. If you have dental artifact, that the model is robust enough that it can provide you with good contour sets. We have the lips there, and then we can keep moving up, and you can see the brainstem, the mandible. We give you eyes, lens, optic nerve, optic chiasm, brainstem. And so these are full contours. Like if I did want to come in and modify, I thought maybe this doesn't look that great, or I compare it with my MR scan. So now you can evaluate how this looks on your MR scan. This is pretty amazing in my opinion that you'd be able to do this. And these are full contours that you can evaluate between the two data sets. Okay? So that's the time savings that I showed you in regards to doing the protocol. The segmentation is already set up. You don't have to do the structure sets, and the contouring is done. So that saves you minutes to hours right there. Now let's get into talking about how we can save days. In the plan optimization process, so we have multi-criteria optimization, which I talked to you about. And one thing I will say that I know I'm running through the process because this is a presentation and I'm trying to get through as much information as possible, but I will be at the booth, in the roll call booth after this. So if you wanted to dive into something, please stop by and see me. I'd be happy to talk to you about any of these modules that we have that I'm showing you here. So what I want to show you is that how we can navigate and bring the physician, have them sit in one spot, decide on a plan, and then have them go and then continue to work on our processing of this plan here. So what I'm showing you is a head and neck case using multi-criteria optimization. So you can see that I can actually do any type of plan. I have a DMLC plan, I have a Halcyon plan, I have a step and shoot tomotherapy, just using a variant like Aura and Electa for a VMAT case. And one thing that I can show you here is with this, so let me get this, so computing the voxels here. So when you have this plan, and I mentioned talking about how do we get the entire solution space. So physician gives us a written directive. We know that this is, and again, goes back to comprehensive treatment planning system. Here's your scorecard. So this is a scorecard that you can generate based off of the physician's written directive. And it can be templated, so you don't have to create that every single time. It just comes in, you can load template, and then you're able to proceed with that. This could be modified if needed to. If the physician said, say, hey, I actually want to achieve 24 instead of 26, you can do that. Now, we create our objectives and constraints. This is generating something that you want the system to tell you what the best results will be based off of the physician's requirements, right? That's what I'm putting 0 here, is because I want the system to tell me. Because if you remember the old method, that we would have to decide as the planners, okay, I think I can achieve maybe 24 on the parotids and put that in and run the optimizer and see if it achieved it. But what we're saying is like you have the solution here in front of you. When you go to navigation, I've generated up to 22 plans. And this takes about 15 to 20 minutes, but we're talking about spending 15 to 20 minutes to save days on the process of getting a plan. So if the physician came down and said, hey, what's the best the parotid can do, or what is the best that you can do on the parotid? You don't have to go back and optimize. You can just come in here, click on this, and say, yeah, this is exactly what the lowest would be. And that, and then, but what you can tell him, like, because of that, you're not going to be able to achieve the other objectives there. So when we go into the navigation space, you're able to then maybe navigate to get to these objectives. So if I come in here and I'm looking at this, and now I can start to slide dose, and you can see that that dose is changing on that. And this is live dose. If you look at this portion right here, it says clinical, right? So as I'm sliding, I'm sliding real dose because we've already done the segmentation process. And so you can see that by doing this that I can try to achieve a better plan, a plan that maybe I didn't even know the solution was to, right? So again, I won't dive too much into that because we can always show you more in detail, but how would we advanced MCO? So MCO came out very early in 2000. 2010 was the year that we actually implemented that. And I was in the clinic in 2010, and I had seen it like 2011. And when I saw this, when they were showing me that you can slide dose, I was like, when can I get this? I want this today. And so I drank the Kool-Aid, as they say, at that time, and I implemented RayStation in 2012. But because other competition has said, oh, we also have MCO, because we were first in implementing it, we've just been developing and further improving it. So what we have now is we have auto navigate, which if you don't even want to slide, you just have these objectives here. You can hit auto navigate, and what it's going to do now, and this is happening live, right, on my laptop, that it's going to try to achieve these clinical goals by sliding automatically. So there you go. I just hit auto navigate. I have a list of objectives, and I've met those objectives here. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, if you notice I put 24 that was in 26. Now, can I, and this is, doing something outside of norm, but if I put 19, and now you see that's not met, right? Physicians like, oh, this was too easy for you. Let's see how far the system can do that. This works on lexicographical optimization, so I can set priorities here. So I could just click on this objective, and I can change the priority here. And so if I put brainstem is priority number 3, and now I can auto-navigate because I don't have to run another optimization, right? Because the solution space is already there. That I have the entire solution space for this particular plan. So now I put in an objective, and because the solution space was there, I was able to achieve a better result. So this has to be, as I said in my PowerPoint presentation, a paradigm shift, that we now have a new way of doing plans and getting to solutions that may not have been there before. So now you can say, hey, physician, you're sitting next to me. We've achieved all your goals. You're happy. He's happy. He knows that we're looking at the entire solution space. We've come up with the best plan. And now you've saved days on his time and goal. All right. Any questions on this? No? You guys are just speechless? All right. So let me show you the next thing that... I showed you the first thing that was like we saved days there with that application. The other thing that we like with the automation is scripting, and I know you've probably heard about scripting. RayStation uses Python for scripts, and I want to show you how effective it can be with generating scripts and creating processes which you can eliminate those tedious steps. So with RayStation scripting, I'm going to show you with one button click what you would be able to achieve. So the system is asking that the contours were generated. It's saying review the contours that were generated. So then I can stay here and say, okay, evaluate my contours. They look pretty good. So let's look at the side by side here. And it's waiting for me to say those are okay. And I just hit play. And now you can see what it's going to do is going to add a beam, add objectives, and run the optimization all by just that one click. So you can see that now it has the objectives, the optimization parameters, along with creating a clinical goals list that you can then show your physician what you're doing. So this is going to run about 40 iterations until it does the conversion to the dose computation. And then at the end of this, you have a full deliverable plan. So you can see it's clinical dose and just using collapse cone to do that. Okay. And scripting is robust enough within RayStation that it acts as an IED that you can go into script management. You can open up a script, that particular script that I had, and I can modify the script. So I can just invalidate. And the nice thing is, like, because this can be used by anyone, we have those password protections. So if you had a script, you didn't want anyone to, like, change it or add any differences into that you would be able to lock that and have that as a process and do that. So now I can come in here and I can change the parameters to make it applicable to your clinic, or you can write your own script. So that's one nice part. The other part that I like to show off is that, let's say you're new to scripting or you're new to Python, that you're able to record a script and get the parameters that are needed to create a script for your particular case that you want to do. So I can go to script creation, I can hit record, and now you can see that it's recording my button clicks. So I can say new, I can say demo, and I can choose all these things that you normally would do to create a plan. So we'll just choose the true beam and set up some fractionation scheme. Hit OK. And then if I hit stop, it tells me the code that I have to the Python code. So now I can take this, or I can start editing in this because this is an IDE itself, or copy it into another application where you want to compile a script or compile a program. And that can be done with like PyCharm or any IDE that you prefer or that you're comfortable with. So as you can see, I can come in here and change these parameters. Sorry, this mic being in my face is difficult to type and see. But so there you have it. That's a nice way of getting into scripting if that's something that you're interested in. All right. So that's also showing you the optimization and the speed of that. And next thing that I want to show you is talking about collapse cone and Monte Carlo. Because I said this was on the GPU, that what speed that you can see. So if we go back into plan optimization, so let's say I've created a particular plan. These are my objectives. I haven't run the plan yet. These are my constraints. And this is my written directive. So you don't need another application to get your clinical goals or your written directive achieved. This is all within the system here. So we'll start off with running collapse cone, and I'll show you how that compares to Monte Carlo. So I think we'll get that clock back here. So let me go ahead and hit start. And so we can take a look at that it's starting to generate this plan. We can click on our clinical goals and it's giving us what it's trying to achieve at that point. And you can see that in about a couple of seconds it runs through, and this is where now it's calculating collapsed cone dose for 5 beams. This is 5 VMAT beams. Though they are half arc, but they're 5 arcs that are running on this, this lung plan. So you can see in about 35 seconds you've been able to run a plan, and this is a full plan, it's completely done. And you can see your clinical goals and your objectives here. That is pretty fantastic in my opinion. Now, that's collapsed cone, and I have a bunch of physicists in the room, right? That you can say there's a lot of differences when you're running through so much air. So we need to do Monte Carlo on this. So we have Monte Carlo as well. Now I can maybe cheat the system, and I know that the optimization was already done in collapsed cone. I can just hit continue and get Monte Carlo dose, but let's not do that. Let's make it more difficult, and let's have it run the optimization with Monte Carlo. So let's go back to resetting our clock. So as I mentioned, like this is using a class 2 Monte Carlo algorithm, and it's a full Monte Carlo. It's not Acuros is running the full optimization steps with using Monte Carlo. So now you see that it's run through the entire objectives and giving you the calculation. Now it's computing Monte Carlo dose for those 5 arcs. And the nice thing about this is that was 35 seconds. And I got 7 billion histories running Monte Carlo. So I can zoom in here and I can show you what that looks like. It's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. But let's take it to the next level. Like, does this really make a difference? Like, does collapsed cone versus Monte Carlo make a difference? And how can we tell? So we have a way of doing that. So we go into plan evaluation. And so you saw that I didn't hit save on my collapsed cone part, but I can do that. I can just click here and it'll calculate that for me. You know what we did? I reset that, right? So let's save that. Let's save this. And let's go back into this. Let's run this plan. Because it takes 35 seconds, it's not a big deal to run the plan again, right? 45 seconds. So what I'm going to do now is, so we ran the collapsed cone model with that beam orientation and with those beams, and then we ran it with Monte Carlo because we have both dose engines. So what we can do then, after this runs its course here, and you can see down here, right, that 20 iterations was enough because this flattened out. I know that the optimizer finished in accomplishing what it did. Now, we may be missing the dose here. We can go in and change those parameters, but those are simple steps on how to do this because I want to talk about high-level things here for a bit. So now if I go into plan evaluation, and this is my favorite tab. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Yes. So it is using an NVIDIA card. Now, it's not an advanced like gaming PC. It doesn't have any of those functionalities. It's a simple 1 GPU card. And I can show you that you can go into seeing exactly what that GPU card is. So it's an A5000, and it's got a 16 gigabytes. Now, it's not the super high end. Yeah, you don't need that, right? Because the thing that I want to mention that because we're a software company, we focus on getting the code to be able to optimize the hardware that we have. And we, especially now with how expensive GPU cards are, you're not having to purchase like some crazy GPU card. It's middle of the line card that then you can use to run these optimizations, right? And as I mentioned, this is on just a laptop. If you get a server, these times just then go out the window because what I'm showing you would maybe potentially be a lot less than you have. Thank you for that question. Does that answer it? Okay. So my favorite tab, plan evaluation. This is where you would spend time in. This is where your physicians spend time in. And because I showed you two different models, like what we can do that is make a comparison between the two. So I can look at the collapsed cone. I can click or drag or drop down and see. Now, this is the nice thing that when you have to decide, do you want to use collapsed cone or Monte Carlo for like a lung case specifically, or if there's prosthetic hip and you have the beam going through that, the problem with collapsed cone and other algorithms is that you don't know what's happening because you can't trust what's happening. But with full Monte Carlo, you know exactly where you're getting. So now I'm looking at these two different plans. One was run with collapsed cone, and the other one is run with Monte Carlo. And we give you what those dose differences are. So you can see how much of a dose difference you get, right, when you use those two different dose engines. I mean, we're talking about greater than 5% of a difference in the dose distribution. So this is one way of proving that you should use Monte Carlo for lung cases, right? Because then you get to see visually what that is. And you haven't dedicated that much time. I did this right now. I ran 2 cases with this dose algorithms within seconds. So my statement that I made in my PowerPoint presentation was not just hot air, as they say. I proved it to you in this live demo. So that's one thing that you can do. Within the plan evaluation module, you might say, well, we get a lot of cases where the patient comes back or like the patient changes. What tools do we have in here? You can compute that plan on additional beam sets. So if you had another CT or a new CT, just compute that plan on the additional CT. Comprehensive treatment planning system. We have 2 different deformal registration algorithms that are in that. It's a hybrid intensity and biomechanical. So you can deform that one particular initial CT to the new CT or the re-CT, or if the patient came back after a month and you had to re-CT that. And then you can compute that dose on and deform it, deform the contours, deform the dose as well. Then we give you EQ-D2 calculations. We give you the formula here. So if you had external beam and like an HDR plan, you'd be able to import that in or create, we have a Breaky module as well, that you would be able to do that and generate the equivalent, 2-gray equivalent for that particular case. Okay? How am I doing on time? Good. 15 minutes, all right. So is there any question? Oh, perfect, yes. Yes, so we don't do angio yet. We have an application that's called eye planning, which allows you to bring in X-ray images. But we don't do anything as far as like ultrasound, but any other DICOM. So you can see in this patient data management, you can bring in MR, PET, CT, anything that is DICOM format, you're able to bring that in. And then within the patient modeling platform, so we have image registration, which is just your rigid registration that you can do. We have different tools, so we can do it based off of if I want to do a new registration. That we can do a grayscale based, ROI based, or POI based. So with the grayscale, I can actually click and focus on a particular organ at risk. So if I switch this around, then I can go focus on ROI, and then let's say I'm going to focus on the CTV and hit OK. And if I hit start, it's going to automatically do that for me. And we also have, after that's done, we can that's pretty fast. I can't even talk that fast. The manual tools, which you can come in and do that. So if you wanted to maximize this, take that, and maybe modify this and go over to sagittal. All the tools are here to be able to do that. Yeah. Does that answer your question? And then once you do a registration, then you can use the formal registration. And like I said, we have two different algorithms here that do high intensity as well as biomechanical. So if I choose this, I use my reference, which is my CT planning, and I want to take it to maybe my CT. Now, one other nice thing that we have with this is you can see that I can just go in and maybe deform some of these structures here onto the cone beam CT, and I'll calculate that for you. And that's also done on the GPU because everything that's in RayStation is calculated with the GPU. So there you go. Now I have the deformal registration of the cone beam to the planning CT, and I can then copy over the structures or calculate dose on this. Like I can go into my plan evaluation, as I mentioned, and compute additional beams. So I can take that plan that we were working on, and then I can calculate on the cone beam CT. And I can do that. Like it's just so quick and so easy that you can do so many things with it, and that's kind of why like I'm so big on that. So let's go back to what I was going to talk to you about. So let's say you want to do adaptive planning or you want to do replanning, and the only thing is you have cone beam CTs. With this, we currently have synthetic CT. So what this algorithm uses is the ability to take the cone beam CT and convert it using the planning CT. So it will adapt and replace those low density and the low scatter that you get from a cone beam and take the information from your diagnostic CT and create a synthetic CT. So let me show you how you do that with and what it looks like. So there you have it. Now we have a corrected cone beam CT. So if we go back into modeling and structure definition and look at something side by side. So now you can see this is the corrected cone beam CT. So this was a CBCT, and this is now the cone beam CT that's been corrected for some of the artifacts. And so you can calculate dose on this. And we have two different algorithms for doing that. So this was a corrected CT. And if I click on here, I also have the virtual CT. Now, the virtual CT would be the CT that you may want to use for calculation. For deformation and dose tracking, you can use the corrected one because if you look at the differences that you get, so now if I show you, there we go. That let's set this as secondary and set this as primary. So you can see that the virtual CT is a lot better because it's making use of the algorithm for the corrected CT, so the low density information, and then it's using the planning CT to create this. So let's look at the cone beam here. So look at the difference, right? That's taking the cone beam and then synthesizing it. This is the synthetic CT. So we can see drastic improvements here. So let's then make comparison of the SimCT, the one that we're planning with, and make that comparison. I got to say that's pretty good. And what we can do then is copy the structures over to that and then just do adaptive planning. So this is our way of getting into the realm of, we look at it this way that everyone should be able to do adaptive. They don't need a new machine to do adaptive because the tools should be available for any linac that you have. Because you should be able to take a cone beam, convert it to a synthetic CT, and then have the automation tools that I showed you that you can do them in seconds, that you can essentially have adaptive for any machine that you have in your clinic. The IX can turn into an adaptive machine. The TrueBeam can turn into an adaptive machine with some of these tools. I know that's pretty bold, but I think you can see by the tools that we have and the speed that you really could accomplish those tasks if you really wanted to. Okay. All right. Trying to be cognizant of time. Any other questions that you have that what I've showed you at this point? That was the one I wanted to do. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. So one last item that I had on there was like you can create a plan in seconds. And this is our fallback process that we have within RayStation. So what the idea with fallback is, let's say you have two machines in your clinic and one machine goes down. Now you have to be able to generate plans for the patient for the other machine. Now that requires going back and generating plans and creating objectives and doing all those things for that one particular machine. But RayStation, at its onset, it actually had created this for another vendor, is fallback planning. So let's say that we had a Tomo plan, and the Tomo went down, so we needed to now generate a plan on the linac, and we needed to do like a step and shoot for it. So here I have a Tomo plan, but what I need is a 7-field step and shoot. So what we can do is by one button click, which is mimic dose, that it's going to take that particular plan and then automatically generate that for the step and shoot field. So I didn't create any objectives. I didn't create any optimization. I didn't change the machine parameter. I didn't add beams because that's all configured in here. So what the algorithm is doing, it's doing a mimic of each of the voxels from that mimic plan and generating it on the same CT with a different machine that's in the Ray Physics module. So, and what it's going to do is it's going to try to match the DVH from that plan over to the new plan. So you can see it's calculating dose, and within seconds, now I have a plan that is for a different machine. The nice thing with this is, let's say you have two machines in your clinic. RayStation you can set up to, in the background, automatically generate a backup plan, a fallback plan, for any machine, any plan that you do. And so at any moment, whichever machine goes down, you have a plan that you can just go back to and have the patient not be interrupted at all. So as you're generating these plans, fallback, as long as you come in and define these particular type of techniques. So your clinic does Tomo or it does a VMAT, whichever it may be, that you can do that. So if I decide I want to mimic like a VMAT plan to the Tomo plan, then I can do that. I can come in here, mimic dose, and watch it do its job of calculating that particular case. This is an extremely powerful tool, especially if you have different machines that may not be matched. I mean, if it's matched, then obviously that's not a problem. But if they're not matched or if they're different techniques. One other thing that you can do with this is, let's say you wanted to see difference between you had a linac and a Tomo, and you wanted to see which one would be a better plan. You generate one plan, and then you get the second one for free. Like essentially, then you can just compare those two, and you can decide without additional work, because you've already done like the whole process where the system is going to figure that out for you. So multiple different ways of using this tool, like as I mentioned, you create a plan automatically. You can have a backup plan generated in the background. You can make plan comparisons and really become something that has multiple functionalities. Okay? Questions? Since you're not asking questions here, I expect you to see you in the booth when I'm in roll call. So everyone that I see here, I expect you to come say hi to me at least when I'm in the booth. So if you don't have anything else, then I think I've run my time. I'm trying to finish a couple minutes early. So I did get the signal that I had only 5 minutes left. So thank you for your attention.